Live on Facebook with the starting soon image.
Yep. Welcome to Seattle Sports Union, the best in local Seattle sports commentary. My name is Abraham DeWeese, and with me is Robert English. Today we watch the Seattle Seahawks travel to Tampa, to the Bay, and lose 14-5. I haven't quite figured out whether I'm somber about this, whether I'm angry about this, whether I'm perplexed, or whether I expected it. Everything has come to a confluence, and I'm really upset and frustrated. Rob, why am I that way? Why did this game bother me so much?
Well, I mean, take your pick. It was a terrible, ugly. What's the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad game?
It was all of those things.
It was all of those things. I was thinking at one point or another something was going to give. Like something had to give sooner or later, you know, and I thought it might have been when we got the safety. It was like, okay, now we're gonna start playing some football. And then we got the field goals. Like, okay, now we're gonna start playing some football.
Right.
And then we got the fumble. I was like, okay, now we're gonna start playing some football. But we never started playing football.
Just never came. And I have to actually tip my hat to you, because on this very YouTube broadcast last week, you said to me, Abraham, watch out next week. That's a trap game. Saw your Facebook post. All week long, you're saying, watch out for these Buccaneers. That's a trap game. They had just defeated the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead, and they're on a roll. I think you're right. I guess you're right. I didn't want you to be right, Rob, but you're right.
I gotta be honest. I didn't want to be right either. I'm very, very upset that I was right.
Well, let's take a look at let's break down the game a little bit here and take a look at a few of the things. And I have some just burning questions for you. I just want to cover the situation about the sacks. Russell Wilson was sacked 16 times, and he was hurried about twice again as much as that. This line looked like a sieve, and then Russell Wilson didn't seem to have a good feeling for the pressure that was coming after him in a defense that honestly I wasn't that scared of. I can only name a couple of players off of that defense, but they look like the 91 Giants, and they come pounding through. And we saw Russell Wilson on his back and on his stomach all day long. What happened there?
I was very much surprised. I figured early on, though, or I realized early on that we were going to have trouble with the offensive line, or at the offensive line, with their defensive line, because I mean they were coming right through. Like you said, the line was like a sieve. They came right through. Actually, I think for what it's worth, Russell did pretty good with the ball in his hands. I think the sacks that he took really were more or less sacks that he couldn't really avoid. I didn't see any sacks that Russell caused on himself, caused on his own, which he does do from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see him turn into a defensive player like he does every once in a while with his swirly whoop-de-doo things that he does sometimes.
Yeah.
Those tilt-a-whirl things or whatever you call them. But no, he moved well in the pocket. He got out of danger, quite a few times. He ran the ball well. So I was very much, happy to see that. But the offensive line just really just gave it up on him. It was just terrible offensive line play.
3 rookies, Rob. 3 rookies on that line. Joey Hunt came in, the rookie out of Texas Christian University, covered for Justin Britt. And just that one guy, is that the whole difference? Just getting a rookie in at center, or did we see something from the other rookies like George Fant and Jermaine Ifedi? Is there something with them not having the veteran leadership that they need?
I think it's kind of like a domino effect, it's a combination of all those things. We already had a couple of new jacks on the line already, and then you throw another one in there, and there's no consistency, there's no communication, there's no familiarity with your fellow players there. I mean, they have it through practice all week long, but in the game there's those intangibles, and I feel like they just didn't have that. Either that or Tampa's defensive line was just playing good ball. It could be that as well. But either way, it definitely did not look good.
I heard great post-game commentary on the television, and they were mentioning because Joey Hunt is in there, you have to dumb down the offensive line scheme a little bit. And I wonder, with that dumbed down offensive line scheme, whether an inferior Buccaneers defense, perhaps they were able to guess correctly sometimes what we were doing.
It's certainly possible. If we had to dumb down our O-line scheme, then I would be surprised that most defensive lines who are playing with most, if not all, their starters wouldn't be able to get through that. If we play with a dumbed down scheme, you know what I mean? So anybody should be able to get past that.
I also saw from the offensive side of the ball, from the skill positions. I didn't see very good blocking out of the backfield from the running backs, and that's Thomas Rawls, he's okay. He's not great, but he didn't show a lot today. And then George Farmer looks like exactly what he is, a guy who's played several positions, but doesn't seem to understand the peculiarities and the little minor details that it takes to be a great running back in this league.
So often it's the little things that count, and that will be one of them. And actually, it's kind of a big thing, but it would seem like a little thing in the grand scheme of things. But
right, it doesn't show up on the stat card.
Right,
sure.
exactly. And actually, I remember reading, some of the interviews and things with Pete during the week that they were looking forward to seeing what Farmer was going to be able to do. They're looking forward to that. They like what they see in practice. They like what they see, outside of the game. But they were looking forward to see what he was able to be able to bring to the table. He didn't bring much.
No, he didn't. You know what? We didn't do much of either. Get first downs when we were in third down situations. We had one third down. We had 11,
right?
Yeah, we just had one. We just had one third down converted into a first down out of 11 times, and I didn't see receivers get open.
I tell you,
we talked about the offensive line's problem, but I didn't see receivers get open.
Well, I have only beef with one receiver, and you might be able to guess who it is.
Jermaine Kearse?
Jermaine Kearse.
Yes.
I decided 2 things today, and I don't mean to jump the gun here, but today I decided 2 things. Jermaine Kearse will not be a Seahawk next season.
Right.
And number 2, I think you might have saw my post today as well.
Is it Jimmy Graham? Are you going to say Jimmy Graham? Okay.
Jimmy Graham. And listen, and for all the great things that Jimmy has done, which he's done a few more recently than anything else, but you can't put the ball on the ground. You can't put yourself in a position to drop the ball like that. You know what I mean? That was our time. That was the time right there to get back in the game.
Yep.
And Jimmy put the ball on the floor. So
that was a fourth quarter situation where Jimmy Graham had caught the ball over the middle. He's I give him credit for trying to get extra yards, but he wasn't going to get the first down. Just go down. Definitely don't give up that fumble. He got upended, flipped around, and just couldn't hold on to that ball.
I think honestly that Jimmy Graham is. I think he runs a little bit. God, how do I put it? I think he runs a little bit light. He doesn't run very heavy for being such a big guy.
Yeah.
I think he looks a little bit. I don't know if it's just being extra cautious or what, but he runs not like unlike what I would like to see a guy of his size run with the ball in his hand. And yeah, so it wasn't a good show.
Yeah, that's I think that's a athlete in Jimmy Graham who has so much athleticism. Maybe now that he's approaching 30 and has had a couple of knee injuries, doesn't realize that he can't make the plays that he used to, and has to maybe perhaps play a little smarter. And we didn't see that today at all, did we?
Did not.
All right. Russell Wilson went 17 for 33 with 2 interceptions and a paltry 153 yards, 154 yards, something to that effect. This was the worst game that I've seen from him since he got injured back in, when was that, against the Dolphins?
Right.
Yeah, this was not a very productive air game. And I think we have to look at the main man. We have to look at Russell Wilson here.
I definitely put a lot of this on Russell Wilson. I think at one point in the game, I don't know if it was the end of the first, I think it was the end of the first quarter, maybe even partway through the second quarter. It was relatively early in the game, though. They showed the graphic on the screen that we had 1 passing yard. Now Russell had completed a couple of passes already, so obviously we had made more yards, but coupled with the sacks, the total passing yards, we had 1 yard to their 100 and something. So it was really bad. Russell, again, we already talked about how he had very little time in the pocket, oftentimes throughout the game. But even when he did have time to throw the ball, Russell was off today. And maybe it had something to do with the fact that he was worried about getting hit because he took a lot of hits. But I noticed Russell being just a bit off on a lot of throws. The deep balls were a little bit too deep. On the ins and outs, they were just a little bit too far, too far outside the receiver's reach. I give a lot of this to Russell.
I do too. The 2 interceptions were pretty bad as well. They were forced, and Russell Wilson's not a guy who forces the issue that much. And the 2 interceptions were relatively easy. They weren't spectacular catches by the defensive backs. He doesn't usually make poor decisions, but in those 2 interception cases, he made poor decisions. He threw the ball away a lot, and I understand that's offensive line. And you have to grill them really hard for that. It's really hard to grill 3 rookies. On TV, they were talking about Tom Cable, stating that he doesn't really lay into people unless they really, really deserve it, and he's not going to really lay into these rookies. But everybody here is to blame on this offensive team. There's 11 guys you can line up and blame each one of them for today's game. You know who else you can blame, Rob? One, Darrell Bevel. Yes, I'm going there again. I sound like a broken record. Every week on this show, I come up here and I say, Darrell Bevel is the devil. It rhymes. There's some sort of cadence with devil and bevel. But
I see what you did there.
But the game plan in the first 2 series, as you know, Rob, and all of you in the audience probably know, the first several series are scripted, and there is, you don't deviate from that script. That's something that's been planned throughout the week, and that's planned by Darrell Bevel and his coaching staff. And once again, first 3 drives, we don't do anything. We get 3 and outs. You had all week to come up with something, and this is the best you can come up with.
I wasn't really so much upset about the early part of the game. I mean, it just as, like you said, everybody else knows that we tend to start slow, whether it be the first half of a game or the first half of a season. Yeah, that's kind of our MO. Mm-hmm. So I was actually still confident going into this game, or going into the second half of the game. I was really worried that as long as we didn't give up any more points before the break. Because they got into field goal range, and and at the end of the first half, they didn't. I thought they had timeouts, but they decided not to use them. I thought they were going to try and get at least 3 more points, but they didn't do that. So I was happy. It's still 14, the 2-score game. We're still in this.
Yeah.
And in the second half, we actually played much better. So the first half didn't go so great, but I was confident that the second half was the proper adjustments were going to be made, and we'd come out strong. And in my opinion, we actually did. The second half adjustments were made, and we started moving the ball better. But we just kept having these screw ups that ended up leaving us with still no points.
Oh boy, I can't disagree with you more, Rob.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't see any adjustments that were made that did anything other than put 3 points on the board. We took a look. What we looked at here were about 40 attempts in the air, and I just keep bringing this up every week. Only 20 attempts on the ground, and 8 of those attempts were Russell Wilson running the ball, and he did really well. He ran for 80 yards, but the 12 carries by Thomas Rawls for only 33 yards. Where's Alex Collins in this equation? Where is George Farmer in the equation? We weren't down by that much. We're only down by 9 points. You don't have to panic and air the ball out. And I feel like all this year we panic and start airing the ball out when there's plenty of time on the clock.
Yeah, I tend to agree with not so much abandoning the running game. But I mean, usually, in my opinion, when we stopped running the ball, it's because we couldn't run the ball. Today, I don't know if I ever saw that, because I thought Rawls actually ran pretty good for the few carries that he did have. But he's never really got a chance to get going. And I did notice a sense of urgency in the offensive play calling. I did notice that. But I don't like the. I think that. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, you clipped out there for a second, but keep going.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay.
I think the picks that he threw were the type of throws that he typically makes. I think honestly there might have just been a really good defensive game plan on the side of Tampa Bay, because a lot of those throws were throws that Russell just makes, and those are like when I saw the play come together, my heart started to beat real fast. I knew that was the thing that we always do and it always works, but for some reason today it didn't work. So I don't know if necessarily Russell just threw bad passes. As far as the interceptions were concerned, the incompletions, he had a bad day. But like the last pick, the second pick late in the game, I thought that was a play that I was excited for. When the ball was in the air, I knew that was going to go. That was going to be ours. And then it's like that safety sat on that deep route, and it was there for it. So.
Yeah, he knew what was coming. But I don't know. I harp back onto this again. I just sort of feel that we get into this panic mode, and we just decide to air the ball out and hurry up the tempo. That does work sometimes, especially when you get into that fourth quarter with 3 and 4 minutes left on the clock. Of course, you got to hurry up that tempo and get it moving. But man, I just saw us in the fourth quarter not even bother to run. Didn't even do it. And I don't care how good Tampa's game plan is. They are not a better defense than the Bills. They are not a better defense than the Patriots. Well, maybe they're about equivalent as Patriots. And, they're not a better defense. They're definitely not better defense than the Eagles. And those are 3 teams that we scored about 30 points each on.
Maybe it goes back to that traveling to the East Coast, that we can travel to the East Coast road game thing that we have woes with always. I don't honestly. Yeah, I'm at a loss for this one. I was.
Do you think? Go ahead.
I was there. At no point did I believe that we were out of that game until there was just no more time left in the game.
Is it possible, based on your premise that they had a great game plan defensively, is it possible we got the best effort from the Buccaneers? I mean, we took Jameis Winston went 21 for 28. Not a lot of quarterbacks do that against the Seahawks. Had 220 yards and 2 touchdowns. Mike Evans had 8 catches for 104 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now, granted, they got that all in the first quarter, but did we get punched in the mouth and knocked down with their best effort? Is that possible that we didn't expect to see them play this well? I
think, well, what I could say this. We missed Earl Thomas out there in center field.
We'll get to that in segment 2. I got some questions about that. But you're right. It is evident that he wasn't there.
Yeah, I think they probably just took advantage of that early.
So what does that mean, that they isolated Evans in situations where you'd win one-on-one?
I think that may have been the case, and I can't say for sure just without watching actual tape to see whether or not that would have been, Earl's job to cover on that side or not. But yeah, I think like the one he got over Sherman was kind of wishy-washy, just because he was, I mean, obviously grabbing the jersey. The refs totally missed the call on that, but we won't go into that, I guess. But yeah, it just, I think they just went for it early, and they got us. I mean, they really only scored 14 points. So there's something to be said for that. They only scored 14 points.
Well, and that's where I have to give some applause to Chris Richard, the defensive coordinator for the Seahawks. Yes, they came out swinging. They hit us for 14 points, but regardless of our injuries and regardless of the situation, we kept him underneath our season average in points allowed.
Right.
He must have made some adjustments that worked out really well. What I saw, Rob, is I did definitely see Evans matched up on people that weren't Richard Sherman. So I'm sure they had a great plan to keep him away from Richard Sherman. And when they did have one-on-ones with Richard Sherman, they knew, like you said, there's no Earl Thomas to double down on.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Earl Thomas being in that lineup would have been made a huge difference. Huge difference.
Does today's game change your opinion of Jameis Winston? My opinion of Jameis Winston is that he's your average NFL quarterback. One game he's great, the next game he's terrible, and that's probably who he'll be. Did it change your opinion at all today, what you saw from him?
No. I think
Sorry,
Jameis Winston.
by the way, first of all, what do you think of him? I didn't mean to put your words in your mouth. What I think of him is he's average. First of all, what do you think of him? And then does it change your opinion seeing such a great game from him today?
I think Jameis Winston has the potential to be quite a dynamic quarterback in this league. I don't think he's there yet. Today he played a great game. I don't think this game was too far above him. I think he benefited from maybe some good game planning and a little bit of confusion on defense early in the game. But he didn't turn the ball over, and that goes a long way. So great. He played great today.
Oops, looks like you're clipping out there, but yes, he did play. Uh-oh. He did play great, and he did have the one interception. But to be honest, that play, I think what they were trying to do at the end of the game was shut the door on the Seahawks, and they had the forced. One pick, right? I think they forced the situation when it didn't need to be forced.
Right.
All right, great. Well, we're running up against a break here. When we come back, we got to talk about injuries, Rob. There was a lot of them, and I think that really played into how we ended up only scoring 3 offensive points. And boy, oh boy, it was a tough watch today. The game was 14-5. We are the Seattle Sports Union. We're going to discuss this a little bit more. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Seattle Sports Union, the best in local Seattle sports coverage. We're the Seattle Sports Union. We cover all your local teams here, like the Sounders, the Seahawks, the Everett Silvertips. That's right. We cover hockey, Seattle, other Seattle sports such as the Mariners, the Seattle University Red Hawks will be there. Guys, we got to talk a little bit about the Seattle Seahawks here, because we're at the precipice of losing this season if we don't get our players back. Rob, without Earl Thomas, without Michael Bennett, without any, without an offensive line, I don't see this team going anywhere. All right, I want to start with Earl Thomas, Rob. What did you see today without him out there?
I saw a defensive backfield that probably looked wide open to Jameis Winston. I think I would have to imagine that the receivers and quarterbacks would, drool at the mouth when either Earl Thomas or Cam Chancellor is not back there. I imagine that they have to just think that it's Christmas all the time. Earl Thomas is there. He closes distance on balls in the air like nobody in the NFL. You could tell that his backup, his name escapes me right now, Terrell.
Yeah.
You could just totally see that it just wasn't there. And I think those deep balls, like the one that Evans caught on Sherman, you don't typically see guys even try those when Thomas is back there.
Sure. You actually saw 4 or 5 deep balls that they went ahead and did. And I'll tell you what, like you said, unless they catch Earl Thomas like creeping up on the line for some ungodly reason, they will not attempt that at all. Right,
exactly. So, without Earl Thomas, I think we're severely, that's it. It's an Achilles heel. We're it's bad without him back there. Go ahead.
Speaking of heels and ankles and whatnot, Bennett's not here. Bennett's not on the team. Bennett's on the team, but he's not suited up. I didn't see much. I didn't see as much of a pass rush as we normally get. Usually we get 2 sacks a game. We didn't get. We got maybe 1 sack and a bunch of hurries, but not enough to stop Jameis Winston from 21 completions.
Honestly, I had to really sit there and think before you said it. I didn't even realize that we even got a sack. Like, I had to think. I was thinking about that. I was like, did we even get to Winston today? So did we get to him once?
The safety counts as a sack in the stat book.
Okay. So we didn't actually sack him.
No, we didn't. No, in actuality, no, we didn't.
Yeah. See, so that's no good. That's no good. And you can't expect to win games regardless of who you're playing against. When you can't get things like that, you have to be able to get to the quarterback. You don't got to sack him 6, 7, 8, 9 times. You got to get to the quarterback. You have to put pressure on the quarterback. You have to get the quarterback get in his head, knowing that they can get to you. So all those things play into the play on the offensive side, and we didn't have that at all. If it wasn't for the guy pulling down the who's that coming off the edge? Was that Frank Clark coming off the edge that caused that safety?
That was Clark,
it wasn't for him pulling him down. I mean, we wouldn't even have got that. So
Were you a little scared that there were some players that you had never seen their names before on that defensive line?
Yeah.
What was the
one guy's name? Yeah, it was. Shoot, what was his name? I remember saying that specifically. I was like, who? like who is this cat? Like I was hoping he would come in there and have a breakout day, so I'd be happy, so I could remember his name, but it didn't happen.
Yeah. Okay. So no Thomas, no Bennett, no Brock Coyle. There's mounting injuries on this defensive line, and we're supposed to get Bennett and Thomas back next week. Are you hopeful for that or not? These injuries, these hamstring and ankle injuries, they tend to lag. They tend to nag. They tend to keep going on. Right. I'm a little worried they're not going to make it for the Panthers game next week.
And we're going to need them because the Panthers, the Panthers show that they're still playing football despite, their record right now. It's a little bit. I know that Earl Thomas's hamstring, to me, is probably going to be one of the things that lingers. And honestly, I'd probably even rather see him sit out another week just because you want him to get healthy all the way.
Yeah.
So it's tough. It's tough to to say, okay, we want our guys back as soon as possible. I'm hoping Bennett's back, but Earl Thomas, if he sat out another week, I probably wouldn't even be so upset about it.
Who's more important, Bennett or Thomas?
Probably. I have to go ahead and say maybe Bennett, because at least with Bennett on the front line there, we can get pressure on the quarterback, which might limit the quarterback's ability to go deep downfield. So I'd say maybe Bennett probably would be the more important cog in that.
Gotcha. I have Earl Thomas as the superior athlete, but I'm learning that Michael Bennett makes a huge difference. I would have to actually state that Thomas is probably more important holistically, but when we look at this defensive line not getting the pressure today that we need out of them, and we're not able to get to Jameis Winston and force the issue, we're going to have a hard time advancing into the playoffs without Bennett. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the offensive side of the table here. One CJ Prosise. If we had CJ Prosise, would he have helped in this game?
I don't think so. I don't think that, because it wasn't for a lack of ability from Thomas Rawls. It was a lack of ability to just continue with the game plan, to be able to actually run the football. It wouldn't matter if you had Jim Brown back there. If you don't have the opportunity to give him the ball. I mean, what good is he?
Oh, see, and this is where I disagree with you. I think the opportunities were there. Bevel didn't want to run the ball. Certain situations dictated that you shouldn't run the ball. But I think with the CJ Prosise coming out of the backfield, first, his pass blocking ability, I love it. His ability to catch out of the backfield, I love it. And when we saw George Farmer at the end of the game unable to block people and unable to perform a simple flat pass catch, I thought to myself right there, boy, oh boy, these 2-minute situations are where we need CJ Prosise. And we're not going to have him for a while, not till the playoffs, but I thought he's so much better than George Farmer. I wish he were on the team.
Yeah, I got to give you that for sure. And I was relating more toward the actual running the football, but you're absolutely right. Prosise blocking in the backfield, coming out of the backfield to catch the ball, all those would have been huge to have. But I just don't see that, just the way the game went, I just don't know that we would have
made a difference.
Yeah, it would have been much of a difference. We were stagnant, and when we weren't stagnant, we were getting too much pressure on Russell's face. It was a bad outing. It was a bad outing, and I would like to say that hopefully we just got this out of our system, because I didn't think we were going to go undefeated the rest of the season. So hopefully we can get this one out.
Yeah, it was a bad outing all around. And as we go around, we have to take a look at that center position. I did not realize how much this team needed Justin Britt. I took it for advantage, Rob. I didn't realize Justin Britt was doing an amazing job at center until I saw the 5th round out of TCU, Joey Hunt, take his spot after Britt was injured last week.
Yeah, Russell had pressure right in his face. It wasn't even a lot of it, coming from the edges.
Right.
It was right up the gut. So yeah, that just goes to show you. It definitely goes to show you where we missed that. We missed that Britt at that position.
I did not understand what was going on at left tackle. You had Bradley Sowell, who was injured a couple weeks ago, come back, but he was swapped in and out for Gilliam. And I heard on the television they were stating that he was fighting for his job. What's going on here? Why are you fighting for your job during the game? I realize you're coming off an injury, but doesn't Cable have to put one person in and stick with him?
Well, you would think so, right?
Yeah.
But maybe that whole always compete thing goes right into game time. And I can't say I really disagree with it. I mean, if who you are and what you're doing isn't working, they got to get somebody else in there and see if they can make it work.
But it bugs me. It bugs me to see them yo-yo at the most important offensive line position.
Right.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you there either. But I mean, it's all I want to see is W's. You know what I mean? So if in this game it seemed like we had to do something because nothing was working.
Nothing was working at all. I saw us get beat at the left tackle position. I saw Jermaine Ofetti get beat several times, and he had not actually been doing that bad this entire season. But, that shows again, I come right back to it. Justin Britt had held that tenuous line at least to an average, level of play this season.
Yeah, he had. I have to say, even for all the bad play that we had earlier in the year, I think this was for sure the worst.
Who's more important to this team? I asked you a little bit earlier, Bennett or Earl Thomas. Is Justin Britt more important than Earl Thomas? No. Okay.
No.
I was just trying to cause controversy here.
To put it simply, no.
So with all these injuries breaking us down, we're seeing just the most horrific loss possible in that 14-5 game. I consider that even worse than the Dolphins game. I consider that even worse than the Rams game. This was just bad. This was no good. Great news is Russell Wilson's back. Did you see those 8 carries for 80 yards that he had today? Those are on scrambles and the read zone. What'd you think of his maneuverability today?
I was absolutely impressed and ecstatic over Russell Wilson's play. Running the football. I mentioned earlier, when he wasn't laying on his back, he moved well. Whether it was finding more time in the pocket or actually running with the football. So that part was a silver lining, I guess, in the cloudy day that was today's game. But yeah, Russell looked great. I imagine that maybe we would have just planned, had more scripted, actual play calls to Russell. Maybe we would have had a few more positive plays.
You bet. And that was a little bit. That's something that just confounded me about the lack of the run game. The zone read worked out really well. He did that about 4 times where he kept it himself and got substantial yardage. And what I wanted to see was more. And I realized in today's NFL, you don't put your quarterback out there to get slaughtered. I understand that. But the play worked well. And I want to see it more. And am I getting greedy here in wanting to see maybe another, 10 more attempts with him keeping it maybe 4 or 5 times?
Absolutely. You're being totally greedy. No, definitely you don't want. I don't think Russell should run the ball too much more, if more at all than he already is. I think the reason that it works so well is because he hasn't been doing it, and so that's kind of plays into. Yeah, everybody knows that Russell can run, but Russell hasn't been running, and he's been physically unable to run, up until this point. So I think that we kind of had a little bit of an element of surprise, if you will. With him running the ball so well today, but I don't think that trend will continue moving into the rest of the season and into the playoffs.
Sure, we may have caught the Bucs a little bit off guard with how much faster he is now than he had been in the past, or at least past this season. With the 7-3-1 record, we're now half a game ahead of Detroit for that playoff positioning. Are you concerned that we're going to get past here pretty soon?
Not yet. Obviously it's a very real possibility, but am I concerned? I'm no more concerned than I was in previous weeks. We've got Carolina coming up. I'm not so worried about Carolina as I said before that Carolina wasn't as real as people thought they were last season. They've shown that mostly this year. And I think that's going to continue. They're not playing very well. Yeah. We will handle Carolina at the clink, and we'll get back on the winning trend. But Detroit's playing good football. I actually got an argument with a guy at the bar today about Detroit. Yeah, because he was telling me, I said, "How you doing, bro?" or whatever, and he's, "I'll be doing better if your boys start playing." And then I see that he's wearing a Detroit hat, and I was like, so we got into our, going back and forth, and he's talking about that Detroit could be the team that knocked us out of the playoffs. So obviously that didn't sit well with me. But
that's something that I'm really concerned about myself is after watching them on Thanksgiving, I thought to myself, you know, these guys could give us trouble, and that's why I want us to stay ahead of them. We got to get that number 2 position. At this point, I feel like getting the number 1 seed's off the table. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think the Cowboys are going to give it up. But getting that number 2 spot and getting that home game and then seeing what happens, roll the dice then, I'm all for that. And these injuries, if we don't get these guys back, boy, oh boy, we got to have Justin Britt back. We got to have Earl Thomas back. It was so, and Michael Bennett as well. It was just so amazing to see a healthy Russell Wilson and how much he means to this team. And it'll be amazing to see when those 3 guys get back, Justin Britt, Earl Thomas, and Michael Bennett, how much better this team will be. We had all 3 of those guys back. I think we steamroll the Buccaneers. What do you think?
You know, yes, I'm just going to go ahead and agree with you, because if I answer as honest as I can, I don't know. It's gonna make me sad. I think that we just played a bad game today. I don't know if those guys even would have made too much of a difference. You want to think that they would have,
Right.
but I think that we just came out flat today, and that happens sometimes in football. You know, sometimes you just come out flat and the ball doesn't bounce your way. And maybe the humidity in the air down there had the ball a little too tacky to Russell's fingers, and he just couldn't get the ball to fly straight. You know,
Right.
It was just an ugly game.
Well, like I said at the top of the show, you had a gut feeling that this was going to be this was the game that you expected. What gave you that gut feeling? I realize it's hard to figure out what that gut feeling is, but I mean,
yeah, it's just one of those intuitions, I suppose. You know, it's just like that's that game. You know, and then in Tampa. You know, Tampa has a dynamic quarterback. You know, they have a good wide receiver. They have a fairly decent defense. It's one, and then couple that with the you know, going traveling across the country. You know, all those things. When we do that, you know, for me, I weigh all those things, and I'm just like, that one I'm a little bit nervous about. You know, I'm a little bit nervous about that one. And you know, despite the fact that the last 2 weeks we've been playing lights out football, I hadn't really decided fully that we had turned that. We talked previously about us turning that corner.
Yeah.
I don't know if we had actually fully turned that corner yet. We were getting there. I think if we had won today, that would have been okay. I think we've turned the corner for sure.
You know what? You just touched on it for me. I thought we had turned the corner when we scored 30 points. What was it? 31 against the Bills. We beat the Patriots and we beat the Eagles. I thought, boy, oh boy, this thing has turned around. We're on a roll. Nobody's going to stop us, not even the Cowboys. And I think that's where the shock came in for me today was, boy, I should have seen it all along. I should have seen that these injuries were going to doom us this week. I should have seen, like you said, the East Coast trip, you know, is going to be an issue for us. And it just, it was a sucker punch today, and I didn't like it. but good for you. You knew it before us. Please tell me next week. Well, actually, don't tell me yet. Because next segment, we're going to talk about our next game, and I want to get your prediction off of this. All right, we are the Seattle Sports Union. We have great articles on our website. Check us out at seattlesportsunion.com. Check out our Twitter. We have a lot of great posts there at Seattle Sports U, as well our Facebook page where we have all of our posts and all of our articles and all sorts of great content about Seattle sports. We are Seattle Sports Union. We'll be right back. to Seattle Sports Union. My name is Abraham Deweese. We are the best in local Seattle sports coverage. Check us out on Facebook. We have a lot of great posts there. That's Seattle Sports Union. We also have a Twitter feed. That's at Seattle Sports U. We got a couple guys who are posting all the best and greatest and latest news out there. And check out our articles. I'm the editor-in-chief of our website, seattlesportsunion.com. We have previews, we have reviews, we have recaps, we have all sorts of great content on all your local favorite Seattle sports teams. For example, we cover the Seattle Seahawks, and that's what our show right here is on YouTube. It's about the Seattle Seahawks. We also cover the Mariners when they're in season, and congratulations to the Seattle Sounders, who have now advanced to the MLS Cup. Great articles on seattlesportsunion.com. Go check us out. As well, feel free to check out our YouTube page. We have all sorts of great shows. We're focused mostly on the Seahawks, and then out of season, we cover some of the other sports. For example, those Seattle Mariners. And if you've been watching the waiver wire lately, those Mariners have been quite active. All right. Usually with me is one Robert English. He's rebooting his computer. There's a little computer problem there, but we were talking about the Seattle Seahawks. We discussed in the first segment a little bit about what went wrong in today's game. 14-5 against the freaking Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Rob had to talk me off of the ledge a little bit, and if you replay this video, you'll see that. I'm little annoyed at one Daryl Bevel. And if you've been watching us for a while, you know that I'm the guy who doesn't like Bevel. I call him the devil, Daryl Bevel. But maybe it wasn't just him. Because if you look at the injuries on this team, the injuries to Justin Britt at center, which we all saw, there's a huge drop-off from Justin Britt down to Joey Hunt, that fifth-round rookie out of TCU. That seemed to break everything down. You saw 6 sacks against Russell Wilson, and then about 12 or 13 more hurries. Russell Wilson couldn't throw the ball. Russell Wilson had to run around all day. It was great to see that his legs are now working right. The high ankle sprain and that knee injury don't seem to be much of an issue. I was happy about that. That was exciting. Unfortunately, those Tampa Bay Buccaneers scored 2 touchdowns right off the bat, and we could see in those 2 first possessions by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that not having Earl Thomas and not having Michael Bennett was a huge, huge issue. All right. Well, we want to take a look at next week's game because today's game was worthless to us. It sucked. It wasn't good at all. And 3 offensive points. We're going to have to do better because this Carolina Panthers team that's coming into Seattle, they may be out of the playoffs, but they haven't stopped playing football. What we saw from them today is they took the Raiders, the Oakland Raiders, who are now 8-2, they took them to the limit. They nearly took them into overtime. They went and marched all the way down with 1 minute remaining and couldn't get the job done. They got sacked at the goal line, or I'm sorry, at the 50-yard line to end the game. But that Raiders team in Oakland, Carolina didn't care. They went to the Bay and took it to them. And I think that's what they're going to do to us. And that's going to be a problem. I'm not particularly stoked that we have to face them right now because they're probably upset. They're mad. They're 4-6. They know their season isn't going to go anywhere, but they know that they can make a name for themselves like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers made a name for themselves today against us. 4 of the last 6 Panthers games were decided within less than a touchdown. The losses were 1-point losses, 2, 3-point losses. This is a team that hangs in there and stays in the game, and they stay in the game off of the arm of one Cam Newton. Yes, there is a figure, and let's call him a character, if you will, in sports today that's quite polarizing. This is a guy that I've had many arguments with people on my own team about. I think he's a little bit of a dork outside the confines of the gridiron. I think he's a bit of a crybaby. I think he's got a lot of personal issues that he seems to be projecting onto everybody, and I don't like him. I understand he's the most talented, one of the most talented quarterbacks out there, probably the most athletic quarterback out there. But I don't like how he complains, how he doesn't talk to the media, and I don't like how he doesn't give other people credit when they play well. But you gotta give it to him. The guy won the MVP of the NFL last year, and the guy looked fantastic today. He's a little bit down in his stats this year. He's got a 57% completion ratio. Before today's game, he only had 11 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. But boy, did he pour it on today against those Raiders. And the question is, will he pour it on against us? Will this injured defense be able to keep up with him? We'll see. We'll have to see. It looks like we're getting Rob back on. Do we have him back on, Bob? Okay, we'll get him on. Yeah, there he is.
Hey,
how's it going?
It's nice to be back.
All right, Rob. I was just telling our audience about one Cam Newton, and I don't like the guy. I never liked him. I still don't like him, but I'm terrified of the guy. True, his stats are a little bit down this year, but what did I see in the game against the Raiders? He lit it up. When the guy's angry, he produces. I'm terrified of him. What do you think is going to happen next week when he faces a defense without Michael Bennett or Earl Thomas?
You should be afraid of him. You certainly should be afraid of him because he has the power to do very dirty, disgusting things to us. I don't like him either. Well, let me take that back. I am a Cam Newton fan. I lost a little bit of respect for him recently. After the Super Bowl thing, he totally lost points for me for that. And then this year with the whole, complaint about being hit and all this kind of stuff, he's rubbing me the wrong way with that kind of stuff. But as far as what he does in the field, you can't really argue with it. Absolutely. I think he's gonna.
So I'm a little concerned with some of his cohorts too. Last year they didn't have Kelvin Benjamin, but they have him right now. And what did I see today? I saw him run circles around that Oakland Raider defense. I saw Greg Olsen come up big and perform big as well. And what did we see from Greg Olsen last year? He lit us up. It's not just Cam Newton; it's his tools as well.
Absolutely, Greg Olsen. Is probably his most dangerous tool. Like I said, he lit us up right during a time where tight ends were lighting us up. We're gonna have to scheme and game plan because that's we don't want to drop 2 in a row. We're even with today's loss, we're still on a roll, I say. And we need to go ahead and get this victory especially at home. I think that'll play into it as well. But Cam Newton, we have to figure out how to. We usually handle Cam pretty good. We don't let him do a whole lot of crazy stuff to us. And our track record against him is pretty good. So as long as that follows suit, I think we'll be okay.
Who draws the assignment against Greg Olsen? Who's going to cover him?
I would probably have to guess that it would be, just like always, which would probably be KJ Wright. Usually KJ Wright is gonna pick up the tight end there. That's how it has been in the past, if I'm not mistaken. So I hope that they'll between him and kind of scheming with Cam Chancellor, we should be able to hold on to him. As long as they don't give up the seam route. That's the only thing we can't do. We just can't give up the seam route.
Do you think Terrell, the replacement for Earl Thomas, can hold it down? Did you see enough out of him today to where you can say, yeah, I'm not too worried?
What I saw today was what I think I saw anyway were teaching opportunities. So I hopefully what will happen is we'll see what will happen today, go into the film room and study up, apply it to the game plan for Sunday against Carolina, and hopefully we'll get a better result from that.
Got a question for you about the defense. The Panthers for the last handful of years, 4 or 5 years, had always been known for their defense, and obviously they gave up 41 points to the Raiders. They got torched. No Luke Kuechly and no Josh Norman, who left last season. They've been a little bit softer. Do you think we can just wipe the slate clean today of what happened against the Buccaneers and go back to our winning ways against them?
Well, defensively speaking, I think that we should have a much better outing against Carolina, considering that they're a little bit weaker on defense. Like you said, no Kuechly, and Kuechly's out with a concussion, right? So will he
Yes.
will be he cleared to play by next week? Who knows?
Unclear still.
Unclear still.
We'll see closer to game time, I suppose.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Josh Norman not being on the outside, it certainly can't hurt. I don't know if we can wipe the slate clean, but I would imagine that we'll have a little bit of a better outing against them with two of their best players not there anymore. Assuming that Kuechly doesn't play, because they still have what's the other guy's name? Thomas Davis.
Yes.
Is that
yes.
his name? Yeah, he's there. Fantastic player, and he's gonna give us fits. We already know we can't block, so you know what I mean. So
well, oh boy, Rob, we weren't able to block against a standard 4-man rush.
Yeah,
and you're looking at like a Panthers defense that has Star Lutulele on that defensive line. I see him going up against perhaps a Fetty or Glowinski, and I don't know if we can stop him.
I think the best game plan to go in with, as long as we're still having these offensive line troubles, is I mean, you got to work a lot out of the gun. You got to work out of the gun.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just to give Russell the time he needs, I have to imagine that at least being out of the gun, he's going to have the extra beat or two, to see what's going on downfield. To see over the pile, number one, because when he takes the ball from under center, I mean, he's right in the thick of it, So I think maybe working from the gun might help us out. But you're gonna have to give him time. You're gonna have to give him time, and you gotta do it whatever way possible.
Yeah, hopefully we can get Justin Britt back. Maybe we can get a little bit of that veteran leadership back on the line that we didn't have today, and see if that's cure for our ills. We also got to see if perhaps we can get that running game up and working. And maybe it's more of the read zone. All right, I know you don't want more of it, but maybe we can do it as many times as we did today, and then perhaps give it to Rawls more than 12 times.
If we stay on schedule, if the offense stays on schedule, we'll get all the running that you want to see, Abe. I promise. But we have to stay on schedule. The penalties are setting us back. When we're behind and down in distance, which we stay behind and down in distance, it's a killer for the run game. It's a killer for the run game.
I get that, but I just reiterate this. I just pound this premise that it's easier to run block than it is to pass block. And when you get into situations where you go, first down, you pass, but there's a holding penalty. Now it's 1st and 20. Right. That happens less often when you run the ball, And yes, I'm willing to take 2nd and 8 and 2nd and 7. That's fine. Do it again, run again. All right, now you have 3rd and 5. Mm-hmm. Makeable. What did we see today? We saw that our average 3rd down distance was almost 9 yards. So of course we saw the result of only 3 points. We couldn't get short down in distance, and I really feel the run game helps. Anyway, want to talk. We only got a couple minutes left, and I want to get your opinion on this game, maybe even a prediction on how you think we're going to do against those Panthers when they come to CenturyLink.
Okay. I'm going to call to my spirits here.
Your spirit guide.
Yeah, spirit guide. I'm going to go ahead and say, all things considered, potentially not having Earl Thomas still, Bennett should be back. At the clink, I'm going to go ahead and say that we beat Carolina. Relatively low scoring game. I'm going to say 20-16, something like that.
I have a similar case and scenario for you. It's a low scoring affair where 1 or 2 big plays makes all the difference in the world. Maybe it's a special teams return by Tyler Lockett, or maybe it's an interception return, and you end up with a 17-14 game in our favor. All right, we got a couple minutes left. I want to go around the NFC West here. As we lost today, and as I was grumping and being grumpy and moping and annoyed by the overall results, I did have a little bit of a smile, Rob. I saw that all the NFC West teams lost.
Yeah, it's kind of sad actually when you think about it. What they call it, the NFC West was the NFC worst back in the day.
Yeah, it is
Uh,
again today.
yeah, and it's getting back to that. I mean, luckily, Seattle's a good team, but back what was it, 2000, prior to Russell getting there, I mean, 8 wins was winning you this division. You know what I mean? So, it's kind of sad that the rest of the division isn't all that good this year. But hey, we didn't lose any ground, which is very important. Not in the division anyway. We lost ground to Detroit, but
Right.
we didn't lose any ground in the division. So that's good news. So you
Hey,
can't really get mad about that.
I don't care if our division's terrible, man. This isn't college football. Strength of schedule doesn't mean a thing. I hope they lose, all the rest of their games. And I had an especially big smile because my cousins live in Phoenix, and I saw the Arizona Cardinals got smoked by the Atlanta Falcons. And that was good times for me. Those some good text messages with my cousins.
Absolutely. I love anytime, no matter what's going on, I love seeing, especially 49ers. I love seeing Frisco lose, right? And I love seeing the Cardinals lose, and I love seeing the Rams lose, but especially the 49ers. Especially
Oh boy,
the 49ers.
yeah, we're on the precipice of change. I think there's going to be a lot of change in Los Angeles. I think, and I'm talking about the head coach, Jeff Fisher. I think there's going to be a lot of change in the 49ers, and that'll probably be personnel. And I think due to age, we might see some change at the Cardinals. Some of the players are getting old, and they're not the scary team that they have been for the last 4 or 5 years.
The quarterback's probably going to have to go.
Yeah.
And I think that Larry Fitzgerald is probably coming to an end. He's been 13 years. He's in the league now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
The Arizona's gonna the whole division really, besides the Seahawks, is probably get up for a pretty big change. So that bodes well for us. So
You bet.
they can have
So the Hawks have nothing to worry about, right?
nothing to worry about for at least the next 3-4 years, right?
Excellent. Well, Rob, thank you for joining us today. And thank all of you out there for watching us. We are the Seattle Sports Union. Check us out here on YouTube. We've got a bunch of great shows from the past, and we're going to have a bunch of great shows in the future as well. All right, Rob and I will see you guys next week. Have a great day, guys.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.